Today I'm here with Nicola Harris, who's a skin therapist, and can I just say, the most amazing skin therapist. And if you live in the Liverpool area of England, I highly suggest you contact her. She does the most incredible facials, and I've had a couple with her, and she's just amazing. You can find her on Instagram. She's Nicola Harris Facialist. But the reason I've sat down with her today is I wanted to talk about rosacea, because I don't know myself a lot about rosacea, although I did share on a recent video that I get this bump in the middle of my face, and I was told that just appears for weeks and then it disappears, and I was told by a dermatologist recently that it is a form of rosacea. And my understanding is there are quite a few different forms of rosacea. Now, I noticed on Instagram that Nicola had recently had a very severe outbreak of rosacea. And of course, she is an expert in skin. And so she showed the entire progress. And I thought, well, this would be great because not only is she a skin therapist, but she actually suffers from rosacea. So I thought she's the perfect person to sit down and talk about this. So I do understand that as one gets older, and it's probably linked to hormones, I would think.
It can be, yeah.
Rosacea becomes more prevalent, and people who've never had rosacea can suddenly get rosacea.
Yes.
So what are the different kinds of rosacea? What kind of rosacea do you have?
Okay, so there's different kinds, from the skin just flushing red, and then there's
Do you mean like a hormonal flush, like a menopausal flush?
But it lasts a lot longer than just a
few minutes.
Flush. Yeah.
Right.
You can actually feel your face burn, so you know when it's about.
And that could be rosacea?
That can be rosacea.
And can that last for days?
It lasts for a while, and then the redness will stay a little bit longer because there's different triggers that can trigger that.
Right.
And then obviously there's acne rosacea, which I unfortunately have.
Oh my goodness. So what is acne rosacea?
So the acne rosacea tends to be the redness as well as pustules as well. So you have a full-on breakout.
That
so
sounds horrendous.
Yes.
And I do remember your photos on Instagram,
yes.
and it did look.
Yeah.
It was very visible, wasn't it?
It's very. And when it first comes, then obviously you have to just try calm it down, but it's part of, with skins of fair skins,
yes,
we tend to have a diffuse redness naturally.
Right.
So obviously as we get older and hormones change and everything, that diffuse redness can be more prevalent, but it can also happen in men.
So hold on. So you're saying people with a fair skin tend to be more susceptible to redness in the skin and are more likely to get rosacea?
They can do, yeah. Rosacea can happen by different means. So at first, from skin therapy point of view, we always believed it was more a barrier issue, skin barrier issue.
Right, right.
So it was believed that there was a disturbance within the microbiome.
Right.
So there's mice, which was more prevalent in those presenting with rosacea.
And do they know if that's true? I mean, is there any science on this? Does anyone know for sure what causes it?
Not really, because it's more the fact that that mite, the Dermadex mite, was more prevalent in the areas that the rosacea was present.
Right.
So my rosacea can be right across the nose, cheek areas, and can break out on the forehead as well. And then
all at the same time, or does it just tend?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The sides of the face and everything, all fine. It's just more cheeks, nose, forehead, and you can get redness on the chin as well. And that's when you start to notice the change.
That is just horrendous.
Yeah.
And did you say men get it as well? Because I've never heard of a man getting rosacea.
Men can get it as well.
Do they get it in the same way as a woman?
They can do, but theirs is, as we were saying before, with the men, it's more of a bulbous nose. So they get a form of rosacea with a big red nose.
Do you know, I have noticed a bulbous red nose on men, but I always presumed that was drink.
Yes, and it can be, because everything starts, whereas we did think it was just the microbiome, the body's connected. So it actually starts from the mouth, from inside. So with the men, it's the hard liquor type.
Right.
So like a whiskey drinker.
Right.
Hitting the esophagus can trigger the redness in the nose.
So explain that to me. You said it starts in the mouth.
Yeah, so literally everything from the minute it goes in, it goes and goes out.
Right.
Then if you are drinking a lot of alcohol, which a lot of people do say it's one of the triggers, but if you are, say, a male who is a hard liquor drinker with strong whiskey type, then it hits the back of the esophagus, and then that will present in the nose area.
Really? That is so interesting. And what's interesting is that it affects men in quite a different way to women, because you don't really see that in women very much, do you?
No, you don't see, I think we tend to drink more wine and lighter drinks.
Oh, right. So but you think if we
more
drank whiskey, we could get the bulbous nose too?
Probably get the bulbous
Gosh,
nose
well,
too.
I'm glad I don't like whiskey, that's for sure. Okay, so there's the acne rosacea, which you get, which does sound awful, and then there's the flushing rosacea, and then there was the weird one I got where I just get a single bump. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of the single one, but it is more, any signs of redness can lead to the rosacea.
To rosacea.
Yeah.
And so as it happens to women mostly, as they get older, this sounds like it's linked to hormones.
Mine personally was. So from once I hit 45 and everything started to change, that's when I noticed my skin wasn't being as good as it normally was, because it was literally flawless.
So, okay, so what is the answer? Is there anything one can do to prevent rosacea ever starting, or anything you can do that once you know you know what you have, is there anything you can do to prevent it happening, or are there triggers?
There are triggers, and everybody's trigger is different.
Right.
So I've obviously, when I started to research.
Right.
And my trigger is more of a digestive issue.
Right.
And stress related.
Stress related.
So if you ever see my face red, I'm a little bit stressed.
That is, do you know, and I cover stress a lot on Ageless because I suffer from stress, and I've noticed that the older I get, it's almost as if the less I can tolerate stress.
Yes.
And I think maybe it's because an accumulation of stress, and you're so when you're younger, you're very resilient. Your body's very resilient, and it's maybe new to the stress. But as you get older, and your body has dealt with stress for longer and longer and longer, it begins to wear out, and it just can't take anymore.
Yeah.
How did you discover that it was digestive issues?
I actually went to Marie Reynolds.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
So Marie, I actually met Nicola through Marie Reynolds, who I always call, who's also a skin therapist, and I always call her a skin guru and a skin alchemist, because she has so much knowledge of the body and the skin. She really is absolutely amazing. Oh, so Marie helped you identify it?
She did, because, well, I knew it was the rosacea, but obviously I can get my hands on whatever cream I needed.
Yes.
And nothing was working.
Really?
So I got Marie Reynolds London products in with the supplements.
Right.
And I talked through everything, supplementation. And as Marie always says, it's literally from the minute you eat to what comes out of the end.
Oh, yes. Oh, she does like to talk about that, yes.
Yes. So I got a deeper understanding and then took it from there.
Right.
And researched everything and understood what my triggers were. And everybody obviously is different.
And it is quite hard to find that, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a little bit like IBS. IBS is, irritable bowel syndrome, and it's very hard to treat. And I think that's stress related as well. And I've done an article on that, and it really is an accumulation of different symptoms. and different triggers, and and unfortunately, it's one of the things that if you go to the doctor about, you're probably not going to get very far.
No.
So this is when you do need a functional
Yes.
approach and an alternative approach. So it sounds like rosacea might be
I believe
similar.
is more a digestive issue.
So do you think it could be
More
triggered by food, certain foods?
It can be triggered by certain foods, but it's also, like you said with the IBS, that's another trigger. So
Yeah. Oh, a trigger. IBS
Yes.
is a trigger of rosacea.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, isn't
So
that interesting?
any digestive issues, then it can, inflammation within the digestive tract, no matter where it is, can then present itself as rosacea on the face.
That is
So,
tricky.
yeah.
So what, I mean, I'm not expecting you to actually answer this, but what is the answer?
Well, with myself, I had to manage sleep because obviously going through the menopause, it was anxiety with the skin, stress.
Right.
Then
And your skin
maybe-
looks so lovely now.
It's gone a lot better. So sleep is really important.
Yes.
Hydration.
Right.
Obviously your nutrition is
Right.
of high importance. And I eliminated certain things that I believed could be the trigger.
Right.
So elimination of red wine.
So one really does have to be a detective. And you know what's so interesting, what you're saying, is you've mentioned hydration, you've mentioned nutrition, you've mentioned sleep. So what I go on about all the time on my Instagram and on Ageless is that one needs to look after all one's health. And certainly on Instagram, I talk about sleep a lot. And, sleep is difficult. And I suffer with sleep quite a lot. I have quite a stressful life. I'm filming, I'm up early in the morning. I sometimes don't go to bed early enough. But I talk about sleep habits a lot. I talk about hydration and nutrition.
Yes.
So, what I always say is no matter what anybody says, whether they say I'm suffering from this or this or this, I always say, cut out junk food.
Yes.
Cut out fizzy drinks. That includes diet fizzy drinks because they have artificial sweeteners in which are not going to do you any favours and won't keep you thin, by the way. So all these things are so important. Inflammation, we're talking, the moment you talk about gut, we're talking about inflammation.
Yep.
And if you have digestive disorders, we're talking about inflammation. And junk food, processed foods, seed oils. I write a lot about seed oils and vegetable oils. They're all inflammatory.
Yes.
So all these things are going to, and your skin is a reflection of what's going on inside, isn't it?
Very much so. Everything that's presented on the skin normally is coming from within.
Yes. That is so true. So it is a tricky one, rosacea, as I said, like it is with IBS. And so if anyone's suffering from it, I would say, you really do need to look after yourself. You need to look at your stress levels and what you're eating. But can you tell me, so we've talked about this flushing rosacea, we've talked about acne rosacea. Are there other forms of rosacea as well?
There are. Other people can present in a different way, and you have to be really careful because there's also those who suffer from lupus will get a different rash or redness on the skin, which is like a butterfly rash.
Right.
But that's not a form of rosacea. That's something totally different. But it can be misconstrued as being rosacea. But most of the time it is cheek area, so digestive zone.
People often get little thread veins on their cheeks. That's not rosacea, is it?
No, some of that can be part of it when it first
Really?
starts. Yeah, because as we said, any inflammation coming from within, whether that's the back of the throat, you will start to see the capillaries being more visible because the skin needs more oxygen.
Right. So really, and is rosacea quite unusual in people younger than 40?
It is, but there is clients of mine that do have rosacea who are only in the late 20s, yeah.
Really?
But again, that's...
And what would you put that down to?
Being of fair skin and having that diffuse redness naturally present in the skin.
Right, so being fair-skinned
being fair skinned you can have
lead
that.
to it. And I suppose when you think about it, and I'm not a particularly fair-skinned person actually, but I suppose a fair-skinned person actually has a very vulnerable skin because it's got very little protection in it.
It depends on how the skin develops from a child, believe it or not. There is no skin types as such as combination skin and oily skin. There's lipid dry, whereas your skin is not producing the correct lipids that it should.
Right.
And then there's a true oily skin where you're oily from the moment you wake up to the minute you go to bed.
You see, as a teenager, I had incredibly oily skin. Okay, well that is very interesting. Okay, so we can link it to hormones, and it sounds from what you said that alcohol is quite a common trigger.
Yeah, alcohol is a very common trigger.
Would that include wine?
It does, but you have to eliminate which wine is more suitable for you.
Right.
So mine is the red.
Red wine.
So I can
red wine's meant to be quite good for you.
Well, it's got the resveratrol in.
Yes,
so it's just not the full bottle, but yeah.
Right.
Your glasses. And then there's other triggers, obviously sugar. It's an inflammation.
Right, well sugar is bad for you, so sugars are probably a big trigger.
So, yeah, and then processed foods.
Yes, junk.
Some dairy can also have an effect.
Right.
And yeah, there's
lack of sleep.
Lack of sleep is, and especially when you're hitting the menopause.
Right.
The change in the sleep pattern and things like that, your sleep is very, very important.
And that's interesting because obviously sleep does get affected by the menopause. You know, you have night sweats. Yeah. People tend to get a bit more anxious during the menopause, and it all affects sleep. What I always say is that I think that sleep habits are very, very important. Yes. So try and go to bed at the same time every night. I mean, I try to turn off the light by 11 and have a quiet time before sleep.
Yes.
So you don't want to be on lots of gadgets. You don't want to be watching the news. You don't really want to be watching television.
No, we shouldn't have a television in your bedroom. Literally.
Yeah, I watch in the living room, and then I turn it off, and then I'll get into bed and I'll read. I find reading very soothing before I sleep. But the important thing is to set a time and to have a habit. What I always say is never sleep with your phone by your bed.
Yes. Especially
with your phone on. And I know a lot of people use their phone as an alarm clock, but the rays coming off your phone will hinder your sleep. And I use a proper old-fashioned alarm clock, and that's far better. So I always leave my phone in the kitchen and completely turned off. And you know, we all do that scrolling thing, but scrolling before bed is a killer.
Yeah, and first thing in the morning.
It's just not good.
Because you've got to follow your circadian rhythm as well.
Exactly.
So ideally, women should be in bed before 11.
Yes, I try to, and I always sleep better when I do. Yeah, so, okay, so if you are a rosacea sufferer, it's all about leading a balanced, stress-free, well-slept life, which I know is hard to do, but there are many, many things you can do to help that along. And I suppose to play detective and find those triggers.
Yes.
So it might be your chocolate, it might be your sugar, it might be your late night snack.
And even as we said, the wine, yes, wine is okay, but wine can convert into sugar. So if you've got the sweet tooth within the sweets itself, sugary drinks, you know, wine, you've got a lot of inflammation going on within.
One last question. So say somebody has a rosacea outbreak.
Yes.
What do you recommend they do physically on the skin?
On the skin, I do use a product from Osmosis.
Right.
Which is called Rescue.
Right.
And it's a trioxylane, it's a stabilised oxygen molecule.
Right.
And it does rescue your skin.
Does it?
Yes. And that has been my saving grace.
And where can people get that?
I have it in clinic. There's a few clinics in the UK.
Right.
But at the moment we are getting it from America.
Right. Okay, and I mentioned in a previous one Arc's anti-redness serum, which is in the Ageless shop, which people are saying they are getting very, very good results for all kinds of facial redness, including rosacea.
Yeah, because it calms down the microbiome.
And if you've got a rosacea outbreak, is it best not to do your normal skincare regime on it? Is it best to leave the skin bare?
You have to be very, very careful because the microbiome your skin is disrupted.
Right.
So I would avoid vitamin C's.
Vitamin C products?
Products, yeah.
Right,
they
interesting.
They can be very active. Depending
yes, it is very active. Yes.
So depending on what brand and how it's made.
So you don't want active ingredients on your rosacea. Well, that's good to know. What about like a facial oil, just a pure oil?
Pure oil, like I liked Marie Reynolds Anoint.
Yes, really Anoint is beautiful.
It really helps to calm the inflammation.
And you'll find that on the Glynis Loves page, yes.
And then the prickly pear.
Oh, and the prickly pear seed oil, Garden of Wisdom, also on the Glynis Loves page. So when you have your acne rosacea, you still use a facial oil?
Yes.
Because I know that goes against the grain, doesn't it?
Yes, but your skin still requires the oil. It needs the oil and the water.
I know. Marie Reynolds has always told me about that. You know, things that you think won't be good for spots. It's not what you think. And she has spoken about that before.
The skin works in a certain way.
Right.
So the oil that's already on the skin, which is prevalent, is to protect the skin.
Right.
But we also need the cells to have a little bit more.
Right. So you don't want active ingredients, you want pure ingredients.
Yes.
So like Anoint, prickly pear seed oil, your osmosis product, which was called Rescue, and Arc's anti-redness serum. So those are some good things to look for. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking me.